Hi guys, so in today's video we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. Now, this is actually a subscriber's car, and in part 2 he's going to be painting this himself. So in part 1 I'm just running through the wet on wet stage on this. So this is something that Chris here has been working on for about the past 2 years, getting it tidied up, getting the welding done, getting the bodywork sorted, getting the primer on, the epoxy, everything, getting it back up to a rolling shell. He came to us on a training day and asked if it'd be possible to paint it for him. So I suggested to him that instead of painting it for him, why doesn't he come down and I'll coach him through painting it himself. Now, Chris did all the base coat on this car and around about 50% of the clear coat on the car in this weekend. So what we actually did was drop it off late on the Friday afternoon. We then came in over the weekend for him. I came in on the Saturday and the Sunday with him. We got the shell prepped up, masked, cleaned, everything sorted out on the Saturday, and put this coat of wet on. And then on the Sunday we did the whole base coat and clear coat together. And obviously, having the bonus of having me there, I could coach Chris through and direct him in the right direction so he could finish his own project himself. Now, when done, the car isn't perfect. He knew the car wouldn't be perfect, but it's a case of this is a project that he's done himself. He wanted it to be something that he's done himself, so he knew that it wouldn't be to sort of like our usual standards as far as like how 100% clean the bodywork was. He knew there was one or two imperfections in it. We did sort a few of them out on this Saturday before we wet on wet this, and I will leave a link in the description to the wet on wet primer and everything that we've used, and the base and the clear and everything else that we've used throughout this job as well. But overall, I've got to be honest with you, for something that he's had to go at himself, that he's done all the welding work, he's had it acid stripped, he's absolutely gone to town. It looks a nice little car now, something that hopefully once he's taken this away and polished it up, he can be proud of. And it was nice to be able to help him achieve his goal as far as his car went, by doing these 2 training days on the weekend. And instead of focusing on certain aspects in these sort of training days, these training days are actually on his own car and teaching him through his own car, which from my point of view was quite nice to do. It was nice to see him happy with this at the end of it, that all his hard work has finally paid off and it was finally into colour. Now, the other thing that I'm going to mention is the paint suits that me and Chris are wearing in this video. We have put a range of premium paint suits on the website, as well as obviously some of the new clothing. So if you're interested in one of our own premium paint suits, these aren't just some, like other brands suits rebranded. These are our own suits. They're all a premium range. We've got 3 different suits leveling in different price ranges. So whether you're painting at home and you want something a little bit more affordable, or whether you're painting every day in a shop like I am and you want one of the really premium suits, then we've got a range to suit everybody on the website. So the wet on wet that I used for this was actually some Octoral wet on wet. It's their non-sanding high production primer. It's really good stuff actually. It lays really smooth, it's really nice. I have got some of the Capsy wet on wet primer in, but at the moment I've not had enough chance to sort of have a big play with that, so to speak. It's not something that I've had a lot of time to use or test or trial as yet, but so far I have been finding this wet on wet really good. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. I only got this in specifically for doing the MR2, which I've been doing this week, because it was obviously a black car, so we could prep it up a little bit easier, give it one coat of wet on wet like so to seal everything up nice and smooth and all an even colour, before we then went ahead and obviously did the main black and base and clear over the top of it. Now, I found with this, after looking at the data sheet, that it has got a very long open time. It's got an open time of up to 48 hours, so in this instance we wet on wet this the night before. We came in the next morning, we give it a quick denib, and then we could go straight over it, and we didn't have to resand and key the whole car. I also want to say a massive thank you to all the channel members. It seems to be a few more of you channel members popping up more and more these days. I do appreciate your memberships, and don't forget, if you go to the community section on the YouTube channel, there is a 10% off discount code for anything off our website at tonysrefinishing.com that is exclusively for channel members. So now, a lot of people always ask me a lot of questions about wet and wet primer, or non-sanding primer as this is, and why we use it. So on a job like this, you can see there's quite a few rub throughs between the primer and the epoxy, and say on a normal job that might be a rub through between the primer, or it might be a rub through to the base and the clear underneath. So we're basically doing this to seal everything up and give everything one uniform colour. Now the colour for this is like that typical Renault 5 gunmetal grey colour. So having all these little breakthroughs and all these little rub throughs isn't a massive issue because they're only down to epoxy. Nothing's really down to metal anywhere. Not that I can remember off the top of my head anyway. But what it does is it gives us one real nice clean uniform surface then to spray over. So you could put this down like I did on some of the other parts after this weekend, because I finished like the bumpers and a few little bits for him that we didn't have time to do at the weekend. I put it down, I left it around about 20 minutes to half an hour at 20 degrees, and then shot the base coat straight over it. Now that's why we call it a wet on wet or non-sanding primer, because you can go straight over this without keying it up if you want to. So it's also good, say when you've done repairs, if your primer colour's not quite perfect for the car, like us, we tend to keep a mid-grade primer in. Then every now and again, say if I was doing a black bumper, I could wet on wet it up with this after it had been repaired, and then paint straight over it. And obviously, one, that would seal in all the prep marks, so any prep scratches, and wet on wet primer typically will cover up to a 320 prep scratch. So if you're like me and you like to block out a little bit harsher and then DA up, if you've missed a small prep mark somewhere, then this will fill that prep mark in. And obviously when it comes to the colouring up stage, especially on a job like this, it's probably going to be one less coat of paint we're going to put down, because everything was a uniform colour and there are 0 prep scratches. This basically leaves a perfect surface, a bit like when you get a brand new wing in the post and it's got that black primer on it. It's that kind of look to it when it's matted off. It's like almost like a satin finish, real nice, real smooth. It dries back really well, and it just gives an absolutely ideal base surface to start painting over. Like I said, that's why I've got it in for the MR2. I've got a few other jobs in and coming in at the moment that I'm gonna probably grab some of their other different colours, because it's my mate that recommended this one to me. It's one that he's got in his shop, and I tried a little bit of it the other week and I was like, that's actually really nice. So I grabbed a tin. From what I can remember, they also do it in a grey and a white as well. So having one each of these in would be quite handy for when you're doing different jobs. Like earlier in the week, I had a white Audi Q5 in, and what I did with that actually was use some of the Capsy wet on wet. Now that's the first time I've actually had the chance to use the Capsy wet on wet. Did really well, had no issues with it whatsoever, but I just didn't want to risk using one that I haven't used before on such a big job. And because my mates used this quite a few times, then I was quite happy to bite the bullet and take his word that it was good enough to use on a full respray, hence why I ordered it in for these two. But as I can try the Capsy one more and more, I'm sure I'll get more used to it, and I'll be at the stage where I'm more than happy to do a full shell in it. It's just getting the hang of the lay down on stuff, you know, the best mixes, the best temperatures, the hardness, etc., and getting everything tuned in just right for where we want to be, and kind of like the overall finish that we want to put out. But for a job like this, it was perfect. It'll also mean that when it comes around to colouring this up, with Chris being a novice painter, he's just, you know, sort of had a bit of a play with a few bits at home, doing like the backs of the panels on this, etc., after he'd been to the training day. it'll make it a lot easier for him to colour up. So you can tell by the video that I am being extremely careful to make sure that I get this into all the little nooks and crannies everywhere, and make sure it's got that 100% sealed surface all over. That then will mean that when he comes along, if there was a slight discrepancy in, say, where that gutter is, that he's not quite shot enough colour down there, with it being a gunmetal grey over a black, it'll cover that pretty much with one coat. So by the time we've put 2 coats and then one really big drop coat over the car, it should be more than enough to cover it up, even if technically it was a touch thin. But if it was a bit thin and it was going over a light grey primer, then obviously it would look thin and that could cause issues. Which obviously on a job like this, the whole point of having these days with myself and me helping Chris with this was to try and give him the best possible outcome for a job that he's been working on for a long time. And when he dropped it off on the Friday, he was super excited to get this done. And I have to say, it was actually a really good laugh as well. He's a really nice guy. We had a real good laugh and a crack all weekend on a few different things, to be fair. I'm sure he sat at home giggling because he knows about this roof and one certain aspect where I did tell him he had one job to do, and it caused a bit of a drip on the roof. But again, an easy little fix. And those are the sort of things that when little tiny issues like that came along when we were painting this, that was kind of where the advantage of Chris having me there and my experience as a painter, that if something did go wrong or something didn't quite look right, he had the benefit of having the answers to those questions straight away. We had 1 or 2 minor little issues in the shell that we fixed in a matter of seconds. We had 1 or 2 minor little issues when we were painting it. Again, not big things, that sort of everyday things, but everyday things for a novice which seem like a massive problem, but to, you know, us guys that paint all day every day, it's just a regular small issue that we can fix in a matter of seconds. Whereas, you know, Chris or somebody like that might have thought, well, I'm just going to have to stop painting this now and sand it down and start again, when in reality it's just a quick fix. But it was a pleasure to have him with me for the weekend. Like I said, he was a really nice chap. He will have picked this up today, actually, that you're watching this video. He's popping down over with the trailer to pick this back up. Now that I've just blown the bumpers and stuff over for him in the evenings this week to get them out of the way, so we can take it all home in one piece. And then he's going to flat and polish it all himself, and then obviously get this rebuilt. So I will get a little bit of a picture of the car panelled back up as it left us, so you guys can have a little bit of a look at that and see what that was like in the final video. And when Chris has got this back together, I'll get him to pop over for a couple of hours one day, and we'll have a bit of a walk around and a bit of a film, and, you know, see what this thing looks like when it's finished. Because I know these Renault 5s now are a car that a lot of people are interested in. You know, they were quite common when I first started painting, and now not so much. The more getting towards the classics and that sort of stuff. So it's nice to see one that's been like fully acid stripped, fully resealed, all the welding's been done on it. You know, he's put a lot of time and effort into this car, and when he first started this, he had no idea what he was doing with any of it. It's kind of like a bit of a project that he wanted to do, and I know he's got another one that he's on about having us I think bodywork and paint for him instead, because I think he's realised just how much fun all this rubbing down constantly on cars is. But overall, you know, it was a brilliant weekend. Part 2 will be up maybe next week, probably the week after. I've got an absolute ton of videos filmed at the minute, so they might be staggered in the way that they come out. Next week's probably going to be on the MR2. The week after that's probably going to be on the camper, and various bits and bobs in and around that. But what I'm going to do with all these resprays from now on is put all these bigger jobs into playlists. So even if it's staggered out, and one week it's, say, this, and the next week it's the MR2, and the next week it's the bay window camper that we're doing, then I'm going to stagger them. I'm going to put them all into their own playlist, So if you ever want to go back and watch the videos as the complete playlist, rather than sort of one week, 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, then you can at any point go back through and watch them in order all together, because it'll just help keep things a little bit more organized as far as the videos go on the channel. But as far as editing and uploading goes, some videos are huge to edit. I edited this one last weekend, and I'm voicing it over the night before you guys are seeing it. But I actually edited this the day after we'd done this car. But just because of work commitments this week, we've got a new lad at the workshop that's started with us, which is going to help take a massive amount of pressure off myself. So I've been spending a lot of time with him this week. We've been really busy trying to get this MR2 sorted out, trying to get the bay window straightened out, and the final bits of the panel gaps done on that, so we can start the bodywork on that. Plus a million other things, you know, sort of trying to get him up to speed on bits and bobs, and working through prep work, and showing him through the Kiko system today and stuff like that. It's busy at the moment, so I haven't always got the amount of time that I need to edit the exact video that I want that week. But they will be out, you know. It's just going to be slightly staggered at the moment. It's just a case of I want to make sure we've got a good upload each week, but it can't always be sort of the upload that I want, or that I'd planned to do the next week. So I know, like, the first MR2 video we did like 2 weeks ago, and it'll be like the third week that we put the second one up. But like big videos like that sometimes are hard to edit. They're very long, there's a lot of footage, it takes many hours to go through everything and get everything sorted out. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's video. I'm doing all the wet and wet primer on this shell before we paint it. I will let you guys know when the next part of this video is up and ready. As I said, thank you to all you channel members, and thank you to everybody who has ordered any of the merchandise or any of the suits on the website. I do appreciate your orders. It does really help as well as a channel, to keep things going and to keep making this content and to keep up with the camera kit and everything that we need. So it is greatly appreciated, the support that you guys show. So that's it for me for this week, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video and the little bit of a chat along. I know it might have been a bit of a rant, but hope you've enjoyed this week's video, and I'll see you again soon for the next one. Bye for now.